for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson, your host today. We have so many topics, and I don't know if we're going to be able to fit them all in this hour. We absolutely have to talk about the bloodbath on cable news television. We're going to focus mainly on Tucker Carlson getting fired from Fox Propaganda Channel. So we'll talk a lot about that. We'll mention Don Lemon as well. A Michigan man goes to prison for threatening Black Lives Matter protesters. We have to talk about the Republicans in Tennessee. And we have a lot of LGBTQ information and news to talk about today. Before we get started with today's topics, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube or Mastodon by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, and Mastodon accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen on your local Pacifica affiliate. We are recording this show on Thursday, April 27th, 2023. This is a topic I mentioned several months ago in our Hammer Time segment. I had given the CEO of Spartan Nash, which is a grocery distributor. They also own a ton of grocery stores in the Midwest. He received Douchebag of the Week for sending an email to his employees where he was talking about Michigan's Proposal 3. You know, the proposal that enshrined a woman's right to get an abortion into the Michigan state constitution. And he was saying that, those are a bunch of lies and all of that. And I was actually told by a now former friend who works for Spartan Nash to shut the up. Well, I'm not going to. I want to get to this. This is from nearnorthnow.com. They're a local news agency in an area just north of where we record the show. They're reporting, this is Ken DeLatt reporting, after half a century of serving Fremont area residents, Family Fare will be closing their doors in mid-April. Now let's go back a little bit. Family Fare is the main grocery name for Spartan Nash. Almost all of their stores carry the Family Fare name. There are some upscale stores in the Grand Rapids area that still carry the D&W name. There are a few stores up north that carry a different name as well. I believe Glenn's Markets is one of them. I'm not really sure at this point. Back in June of 2022, Spartan Nash entered into an agreement to purchase Shop and Save Food Centers, which is a 3-store grocery chain in Northwest Michigan. They had locations in Benzonia, Fremont, and Ludington. Now, they've closed the Fremont store less than a year after they took the Bill Shop and Save sign off and put the Family Fare sign up. Why did they close? Well, part of it has to possibly do with Aldi moving into Fremont. Aldi's expanding everywhere at this point. I swear they are. But a lot of the complaints from local people in that area was that when Family Fare took over, they changed everything that they liked about Bill Shop and Save and ruined it. There's actually a rumor going around, I don't know how much truth there is to this, that Spartan Nash did not want the Fremont store, but basically had to buy it because they were told, if you want the chain, you buy all 3 stores or you buy none of the stores. They wanted the Benzonia and Ludington locations, and they just neglected the Fremont locations. So, I told you so. I told you so. I'll just have to say that again. And this is a topic I am never going to shut the f*** up about. This is a guy, the CEO of Spartan Nash, I should say, that donated money to Republicans. I've seen the FEC records, the Federal Election Commission records. I've seen them. They're easy to access. FEC.gov. Don't sit there and tell me what a progressive, great guy he is when he is nothing but a evil, violent, conservative traitor. It's that simple. It's that cut and dried. And people don't get it. Oh, but he's so nice to me. He's such a great guy. Oh,
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
No, it doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. So, yeah, glad I've been able to be proven correct again. So, I just wanted to pat myself on the back for that one. It was beautiful. Before we move on to our main topic today, I want to get to this story involving the school district in my hometown. This is Steve Niebling writing for the Detroit Metro Times. This is dated April 25th. 2 students in western Michigan are suing their school district after they were prohibited from wearing Let's Go Brandon sweatshirts. The lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court Tuesday alleges the Tri-County area schools violated the First and 14th Amendment rights of the students who are in the 7th and 9th grade. A teacher and principal at Tri-County Middle School, about 30 miles north of Grand Rapids, ordered the students to remove their sweatshirts emblazoned with the phrase, "Let's go Brandon," a coded insult that means Joe Biden. The students complied and removed the sweatshirts to avoid disciplinary action. The district's dress code prohibits clothing with messages or illustrations that are lewd, indecent, vulgar, or profane. The students' attorneys at Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, or FIRE, insist the phrase is a sanitized and non-profane, non-vulgar political slogan used to express disapproval of President Joe Biden. Fire attorney Connor Fitzpatrick said, quote, "The slogan exists as a way to express an anti-Biden message without using profanity. A public school district cannot censor speech just because it might cause someone to think about a swear word." End of quote. According to the lawsuit, school officials allowed students to wear gay pride-themed hoodies. That's a false equivalency. It's not the same. Gay pride flags and trans flags and apparel are different than Joe Biden. Fitzpatrick said, quote, "Criticism of the president is core political speech protected by the First Amendment. Whether it's a Biden sticker, Let's Go Brandon sweatshirt, or gay pride t-shirt, schools can't pick and choose which political belief students can express." End of quote. Again, gay pride is not a political belief. You fucking idiot. The lawsuit seeks a court order to block the district's viewpoint discriminatory ban on the Let's Go Brandon apparel. Attorneys are also asking a judge to strike down a provision of the district's dress code that bars clothing that calls undue attention to students. Fire attorneys said the case is similar to Tinker versus Des Moines, which resulted in the Supreme Court confirming students' free speech rights at schools. In that case, students were prohibited from wearing black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. Again, apples and road apples comparison, because one is shit, the other one isn't. Fire attorney Harrison Rosenthal said, quote, "These students should not only be allowed to express their political beliefs, but should be encouraged to do so. America's students must be free to exercise their constitutional rights, not just learn about them. End of quote. Well, again, false equivalency all throughout their argument. We'll keep an eye on this story because, again, my hometown, it's not the first time Tri-County's been sued. They've been sued over having religious courses on school grounds during school hours, and they got their ass kicked years ago by my old buddy Al Mackey. All right, so let's go to our big topic for today. Now, when I started today's show, I almost decided to throw one of the extra special openings in, either play Celebration or when Rush Limbaugh died, I played Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. I was going to do that for Tucker Carlson, but unfortunately, he's still breathing. So even though his career is dead, he's still alive, so we'll save that for another time. But yes, earlier this week, on Monday of all days, Fox Propaganda Channel came out with a statement saying that they were no longer employing Tucker Carlson and that they wished him the best in his future endeavors. They future endeavored him, just like he was a WWE wrestler or something. Well, not too long after that announcement came out, Don Lemon from CNN issued a tweet that said that he had just gotten fired from CNN, which CNN eventually confirmed. So it's not been a very good day and not a very good week for cable news. Oh boy. Here's the irony to this. Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon have both hired the same lawyer. Listen to this, folks. This is Katie Robertson writing for The Hollywood Reporter, dated April 25th. Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, freshly ousted from their perches at top cable networks, have hired the same powerhouse lawyer to navigate their exits. The prominent Hollywood lawyer Brian Friedman has a track record of getting multi-million-dollar settlements for TV stars and other celebrities. He represents Chris Cuomo, the former CNN anchor who is seeking $125 million for wrongful termination after the network fired him in 2021. He also secured a payout of Megyn Kelly's full contract when she left NBC. The news that both Carlson, until recently Fox's top-rated primetime star, and Lemon, until recently one of CNN's morning hosts, had retained Friedman portended possible fights ahead. Friedman declined to comment. Friedman, who is based in Los Angeles, founded the law firm Friedman and Tatelman with Michael Tatelman in 1997. He became known as an aggressive litigator representing high-profile clients in the entertainment industry, including Quentin Tarantino, Julia Roberts, Mariah Carey, Seth Rogen, and Gabrielle Union. In recent years, he has represented axed TV hosts including Mike Richards, a former executive producer of Jeopardy!, and Chris Harrison of The Bachelor. He also represented Michael Jackson's estate in a $100 million fight against the HBO documentary Leaving Neverland, which was won on appeal. Oh, God. For the past 14 years, Friedman has been included in the Hollywood Reporter's annual list of the entertainment industry's top 100 lawyers. In 2022, he said to the publication, quote, "How do employers police their own? What kind of due process is there?" End of quote. Friedman was accused of sexual assault in the 1980s while he was a university student and eventually settled the case for $40,000 without admitting liability, according to court documents. Business Insider reported the suit and the settlement. But there's a little more to this because the media has been focused on Tucker Carlson because he's been such a right-wing big mouth. I have this story. This is Diana Falzone and Azawin Subasang writing for Rolling Stone magazine. This is also dated April 25th. Fox propaganda executives have in their possession a dossier of alleged dirt on Tucker Carlson should he attack the network in the wake of his departure. That's according to 8 sources at and close to the network. Oh, boy. When Fox announced Carlson's departure on Monday, the network presented the separation as amicable. But according to one former on-air Fox personality, the anchor and some of the channel's top executives are parting ways on the worst and messiest possible terms. Indeed, in private communications released last month as part of the Dominion Fox lawsuit, the now fired Fox host gossiped that one such exec hates us, claiming she was covertly working against him and other hosts. But if Carlson attempts to torch the network he's leaving, Fox is prepared, according to sources. 8 people familiar with the situation tell Rolling Stone magazine that Fox Propaganda Channel and its communications department, long led by the notoriously aggressive Irina Briganti, has assembled damaging information about Carlson. One source with knowledge calls it an Oppo file. 2 sources add that Fox is prepared to disclose some of its contents if execs suspect that Carlson is coming after the network. The file includes internal complaints regarding workplace conduct, disparaging comments about management and colleagues, and allegations that the now former primetime host created a toxic work environment, 3 of the sources say. Carlson is currently facing a lawsuit from former senior booking producer Abby Grossberg, alleging a toxic and misogynist workplace environment. The lawsuit details repeated instances of misogynist behavior at the network, including frequent lewd and sexual discussions of female guests and public figures. According to the lawsuit, Grossberg, quote, continued to endure a work environment that subjugates women based on vile sexist stereotypes, typecasts religious minorities and belittles their traditions, and demonstrates little to no regard for those suffering from mental illness, end of quote. Fox denied the allegations when the lawsuit was filed, saying the claims were, quote, without merit, end of quote. Oh, really? Yeah, I don't think they've... Oh, without merit. Unbelievable. A network spokesperson denied the existence of the file on Carlson. In a statement to Rolling Stone magazine, the spokesperson said, quote, this is patently absurd and categorically false. We thank Tucker for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor, end of quotes. No, I guarantee they've got an Oppo file on him, just like they've got files on just about everybody else. Many sources within the network disagree. One network source who is familiar with the Carlson-related complaints said, quote, Irina will never be shy about using these things, end of quote. Over the years, Briganti and Fox PR's tactics have been turned against its own most prominent talent. For instance, the Daily Beast reported in 2018 that emails reviewed and verified by the outlet show that Fox's communications brass have planted negative stories about some of their own top stars, including hosts like Bill O'Reilly and Stuart Varney, the latter of whom is still a Fox employee. Those methods for keeping personnel in line are an open secret among current and former Fox propaganda staff. 4 former Fox propaganda personalities confirmed Briganti likes to keep dirt files on Fox propaganda talent, including one on Carlson. An ex-Fox propaganda channel anchor lamented, quote, Irina tries to keep a file on everybody. Any talent like Tucker would have a lot of things, other people complaining. They encourage it and then just keep it on file. It's just a classic dirty trick, end of quote. Another departed Fox propaganda channel host added, quote, she keeps files on everybody to screw with them. It's classic Fox, end of quote. That I believe. The sources say it was not clear what might prompt Briganti or Fox Propaganda Channel to use the file. On Monday, it was revealed that Carlson had hired Brian Friedman, a high-powered entertainment lawyer, to represent him following his Fox exit. Rolling Stone did not receive comment from Carlson at the time of this piece's publication. Friedman also did not respond to Rolling Stone magazine's request for comment. It's also unclear what precisely triggered Carlson's abrupt departure. In addition to the Grossberg suit, he was a prominent figure in Dominion Voting Systems' legal action against Fox Propaganda Channel, which the network settled for $787.5 million earlier this month. In the run-up to the trial, it was revealed that Carlson had bashed top brass in text chats with fellow network talent. Shortly after Fox propaganda channel projected Joe Biden had beaten Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential election, Carlson wrote, quote, "Do the executives understand how much credibility and trust we've lost with our audience?" End of quote. Regarding Fox propaganda channel executives, Carlson also privately sniped, quote, "A combination of incompetent liberals and top leadership with too much pride to back down is what's happening." End of quote. Oh boy, yeah, he's gonna get it if they use this file against him. Harshly trashing leadership is considered to be a major transgression at Fox Propaganda and Fox Business Propaganda, where those who step out of line may find themselves on the receiving end of an unfavorable story. Fox Propaganda has a history of taking punitive measures against departed personnel. When Megyn Kelly left the network in 2017 to host a morning show on NBC, it was reported that Briganti tried to push stories about the cable news star's poor television ratings at the time, as well as her asking a Will and Grace fan if the show led him to being gay. Oh, Jesus. Kelly has spoken out against Briganti, publicly noting the Fox spokeswoman's vindictiveness. Briganti's aggressive methods are widely known in the media. A 2016 New York Magazine story titled "The Silencing of Fox News' Powerful Publicist Irina Briganti" cited several then Fox female employees who claimed, quote, "One of the reasons they did not speak up about sexual harassment in the past was that they were terrified Briganti would find out and smear them in the press." End of quote. A current Fox propaganda channel journalist says that Briganti won't be afraid to use similar tactics against Carlson. Quote, "Irina is Fox's fighter. She is very good at her job. I gotta believe she's ready to fight Tucker if and when he takes this war publicly." End of quote. Well, we think we might have found out the real reason why Tucker Carlson was fired, or at least the final straw that broke the camel's back. I have this story. This is Gabriel Sherman writing for Vanity Fair magazine. 24 hours after Fox Propaganda Channel ousted its highest-rated host, the network has yet to explain one of the most shocking defenestrations in cable news history. When Sherman asked a Fox News spokeswoman for comment, she texted back to him, quote, "I'm not going beyond the release." End of quote. In this information void, multiple theories about why Fox fired Carlson circulated in the media. It was fallout from the $787.5 million Dominion settlement, punishment for vulgar text messages published in Dominion court filings, or a consequence of former Fox producer Abby Grossberg's lawsuit, which alleged Carlson oversaw a hostile work environment. By the way, Fox Propaganda Channel has vowed to vigorously defend the company against what they call, quote, "Grossberg's unmeritorious legal claims," end of quote. But none of these potential reasons fully add up. Fox Propaganda Channel anchor Maria Bartiromo hyped Dominion conspiracies far more than Carlson did, and yet she remains on the air. Fox had access to Carlson's texts and emails in the Dominion lawsuit for months and didn't punish him for it. Fox hosts sued for sexual harassment in the past were publicly fired for cause, but Carlson wasn't. According to a source, Carlson wasn't even fired and remains on the Fox Propaganda Channel payroll. So the mystery remains. Why did Fox Propaganda Channel take its biggest star off the air? A new theory has emerged. According to a source, Fox Corp chair Rupert Murdoch removed Carlson over remarks that Carlson made during a speech at the Heritage Foundation's 50th anniversary gala on Friday night. Carlson laced his speech with religious overtones that even Murdoch found too extreme, according to the source, who was briefed on Murdoch's decision-making. Carlson told the Heritage audience that national politics has become a Manchean battle between good and evil. Carlson said the people advocating for transgender rights and DEI programs want to destroy America, and they could not be persuaded with facts. He said, quote, "We should say that and stop engaging in these totally fraudulent debates. I've tried. That doesn't work." End of quote. Carlson suggested the answer was prayer. He said, quote, "I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future, and I hope you will." End of quote. The source told Vanity Fair, quote, "That stuff freaks Rupert out. He doesn't like all the spiritual talk." End of quote. Carlson declined to comment. A spokesperson for Fox Corp also declined to comment. It's been reported that Fox Corp CEO Lachlan Murdoch and Fox Propaganda Channel CEO Suzanne Scott made the decision to fire Carlson on Friday night. Another source, a person close to Murdoch, has said something similar to Vanity Fair. Scott informed Carlson of the decision Monday morning. Rupert Murdoch was perhaps unnerved by Carlson's messianism because it echoed the end times worldview of Murdoch's ex-fiancée Anne Leslie Smith, according to the source. In a Vanity Fair cover story in May, they reported that Murdoch and Smith called off their 2-week engagement because Smith had told people that Tucker Carlson was, quote, "a messenger from God," end of quote. Oh, brother. Murdoch had seen Carlson and Smith discuss religion firsthand. In late March, Carlson had dinner at Murdoch's Bel Air Vineyard with Murdoch and Smith, according to the source. During dinner, Smith pulled out a Bible and started reading passages from the book of Exodus, according to the source. The source continued, quote, "Rupert just sat there and stared," end of quote. A few days after the dinner, Murdoch and Smith called off the wedding. By taking Carlson off the air, Murdoch was also taking away his ex's favorite show. Smith did not respond to a request for comment. That would be funny if this all just boiled down to trying to get back at your ex. Usually it's, "Give me back my records." Oh, goodness. The 92-year-old mogul's broken engagement is part of a string of erratic decisions he has made of late that raises questions about Murdoch's leadership of his media empire. According to sources, executives of Fox are worried about Murdoch's unsteady hand at the wheel of the company. The source said, quote, "It's like the king is senile, but no one wants to say anything." End of quote. Brother, brutal stuff here. According to two sources, Fox settled with Dominion moments before the trial was set to begin because Fox's lawyers didn't want Murdoch to testify in public. Oh, God. That's how bad they think Murdoch is. The second source said, quote, "They were hoping and praying to settle for months, but they didn't want to pay up." End of quote. Once the trial began, the lawyers told Fox execs that Murdoch would be, quote, "disgraced on the stand, run out of the boardroom, and his testimony will expose him as a lunatic sliding into senility." End of quote. By the way, the person close to Murdoch disputed this, saying, quote, "Rupert was very well prepared to testify." End of quote. So now you've got differing stories, totally polar opposites. So this could get real interesting. We will follow the exploits of Tucker Carlson. Hopefully he doesn't get on anywhere else like Newsmax or OAN. Although I think he would believe that that was beneath him. I've been to the top of the mountain and it's been great. You know, one of those kind of deals. Speaking of great stuff, I have this story. This is Nick Robertson writing for The Hill. This was published on April 21st. A Michigan man was sentenced to 10 months in prison over attempts to intimidate Black Lives Matter protesters. 62-year-old Kenneth Pylan called 9 Starbucks stores and told employees to threaten and racially demean other employees supporting Black Lives Matter. He also threatened to kill black people, according to court records. Oh, this is a lovely human being. Pylan had called the stores in the days after Starbucks announced it would provide T-shirts for employees who wanted to support Black Lives Matter in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd by police in Minneapolis. Palin also left nooses and threatening notes at Starbucks parking lots and other establishments. Lovely. Court records show that one note read, quote, "An accessory to be worn with your BLM t-shirt. Happy protesting," end of quote. By the way, Palin is a retired optometrist. An earlier story from The Hill said that when he called the Starbucks locations, he also told the employees, quote, "The only good nigger is a dead nigger," end of quote. According to the U.S. Justice Department, Palin also told one worker, quote, "I'm going to go out and lynch me a nigger," end of quote. Oh, this is just a lovely person. 10 months in prison? He needs 10 years. This guy is dangerous. He really is. And he really needs to be locked up for the remainder of his life. I'll just say it, I don't care. Oh, but life in prison shouldn't be for spewing your hatred. Whatever. I don't care. Speaking of spewing hatred, let's get to our next story here. This is Phil Williams writing for WTVF Television out of Nashville, Tennessee. This is published April 20th. A member of Republican leadership in the Tennessee House of Representatives was recently found guilty of sexually harassing at least one legislative intern, likely two, by an ethics subcommittee acting in secret, according to News Channel 5 Investigates. About 6 hours after being confronted by News Channel 5 Investigates, Representative Scotty Campbell gave up his seat in the Tennessee General Assembly. Until now, Campbell, who served as vice chair of the House Republican Caucus and who recently voted to expel 3 Democrats who engaged in a gun violence protest on the House floor, had suffered no previous consequences as a result of his actions. Despite accusations of sometimes extremely vulgar comments and other inappropriate advances, Republicans did not remove the 39-year-old East Tennessee lawmaker from his leadership position, nor from his committee assignments. But taxpayers are paying for his actions. News Channel 5 has learned that potentially thousands of dollars have been spent to protect one victim, relocating her from the downtown apartment building where she and Campbell both had apartments, shipping her furniture back home in another part of the state, and placing her in a downtown hotel for the remainder of her internship. Legislative officials refuse to say how much they've paid out, saying that information is confidential. No, that needs to be disclosed under sunshine laws. That's why Tennessee is the way that it is. They have weak sunshine laws, among other weak things there. Confronted with the allegations Thursday as he headed to Capitol Hill, Campbell referenced a second intern who was also involved in the investigation. News Channel 5 was previously unaware of that individual's complaint. Campbell insisted, quote, "I had consensual adult conversations with 2 adults off property. I think conversations are consensual once that is verbally agreed to. If I choose to talk to any intern in the future, it will be recorded," end of quote. But a 4-member ethics subcommittee composed of 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats came to a different conclusion, according to a memorandum dated March 29th that was sent to House Speaker Cameron Sexton. The memo says, quote, "Based on the completed staff investigation, the ethics subcommittee finds that Representative Campbell violated the policy," end of quote, "against workplace discrimination and harassment." The memo goes on to say that, quote, "discrimination and harassment in any form will not be tolerated," end of quote, concluding that, quote, "no further information concerning this complaint will be released," end of quote. Under the Tennessee General Assembly's own rules, however, quietly placing that vaguely worded memo in a representative's personnel file is the only action that the ethics subcommittee can take upon a finding that he is engaged in improper conduct. Ethics subcommittee members are also barred from publicly discussing their proceedings, again, because their sunshine laws are bullshit. Campbell had represented House District 3 in Northeast Tennessee, which includes Johnson and parts of Carter, Hawkins, and Sullivan counties. He served in the state house from 2010 to 2012. Then he was reelected in 2020 and again in 2022. A self-described promoter, he gained national attention earlier this year when, during debate over a bill banning drag shows in public places, he asked if that legislation would also prohibit a bra and panties match by wrestlers at a county fair. He voted to expel the so-called Tennessee Three, arguing, quote, "If you were in court and behaved like those three did, you would have been found in contempt of court," end of quote. Bullshit, buddy. Legislative interns are generally students from Tennessee colleges and universities. News Channel 5 is withholding the name, exact age, and university of the victim in the sexual harassment investigation to protect her identity. The woman declined to comment for this story, but in an email given to News Channel 5 Investigates by a family member, the victim provided a detailed account to officials at her university about her experiences with the Republican leader. For example, after seeing her and another 19-year-old female intern entering her apartment at the nearby Capitol Towers, the woman describes how Campbell later, quote, made comments about he was in his apartment imagining that we were performing sexual acts on one another and how it drove him crazy knowing that that was happening so close to him, end of quote. She recounts, quote, I uncomfortably explained that that was not happening, and he insisted that he knew it was and asked me to tell him about it. I explained that she is my friend, and he proceeded to describe how sexually attractive he finds her, end of quote. That 19-year-old female intern is believed to be the second person who complained. In response to News Channel 5's questions, Campbell denied that any such conversations ever occurred. When asked about it, he told them, quote, that's not true, end of quote. News Channel 5 Investigates asked him, so she's just making that up? He quietly said, quote, yes, end of quote. The woman's email says Campbell repeatedly made comments about wishing, quote, he had someone with whom he could just cuddle, end of quote, and how, quote, he is very, very lonely, end of quote. Well, you're a Republican. You should be lonely. Any woman with any brains wouldn't have anything to do with a Republican because they want to take away all your rights, like your right to have birth control, to get an abortion, to talk about LGBTQ issues, to talk about black history. Just saying, just saying. The victim recalled that on March 15th, she went to his apartment to return a wrench that she had borrowed. In the email to university officials, she said, quote, he proceeded to ask how many men I've slept with. I told him 0, and he insisted that I was lying and told me not to lie. He then proceeded to ask how many women I've slept with and said he bets girls go crazy over me, end of quote. The victim then said that Campbell offered to give her cannabis gummies to see her tattoos and piercings. In her email, she said, quote, I told him absolutely not, and he begged me for several hugs. I was getting progressively more afraid and uncomfortable. He then reached out his hands toward me and grabbed me around my neck. I recoiled and said I felt sick and immediately left. That was the last night I ever spoke with or saw him. I blocked his number after that, end of quote. Campbell also denied those allegations to News Channel 5 Investigates. He said, quote, again, I had consensual conversations that were agreed to, and I'm really surprised that we are here this morning, end of quote. When asked what he meant by consensual adult conversations, Campbell declined to say, adding, quote, private conversations are supposed to be private, end of quote. Still, a few days after that incident, at the urging of a fellow intern, the victim complained to legislative officials who began an investigation. According to the victim's email to university officials, she was, quote, informed that Representative Campbell admitted fully to his guilt, end of quote. Connie Ridley, Director of Legislative Administration for the General Assembly, provided the memorandum from Campbell's personnel file in response to a public records request. But in a series of email exchanges, Ridley insisted that the legislature's policies prohibit her from providing any additional information, including information about the expenditure of state money to assist the victim. Ridley said, quote, "No information concerning a complaint, investigation, lawsuit, or the implementation of corrective action will be released to anyone not directly involved in such a matter. The legislature will comply with the confidentiality provisions of the workplace discrimination and harassment policy." End of quote. Tennessee lawmakers have faced repeated criticisms over the years for what some see as a lax approach to sexual harassment and discrimination. In April 2019, Representative Rick Staples, Democrat of Knoxville, was found guilty by the Ethics Subcommittee of engaging in sexual harassment after an unnamed woman said that he grabbed and held onto her waist while standing behind her after he had made inappropriate comments about her appearance during a visit to the legislature. Staples later resigned from his leadership position with the House Democratic Caucus. In 2017, Republican Representative Mark Lovell resigned after a sexual harassment investigation. Before that, in 2016, the House expelled Representative Jeremy Durham, a Franklin Republican, following an investigation that found he had engaged in misconduct involving 22 women. So there you go. Lots of shenanigans going on in Tennessee in the legislature. And let's go ahead to our next story here. This is John Tunison writing for MLive and the Grand Rapids Press. This is dated April 20th. A former Calvin University professor claims his 14-year job was terminated because he officiated a queer wedding and opposed showing a racially charged film, according to a lawsuit. Joseph Kailama, who started at Calvin in 2008 and was not reappointed for instruction in August 2022, filed the lawsuit April 14th. The lawsuit is against Calvin University. It claims a violation of the Michigan Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act for associational discrimination and retaliation. In the lawsuit, Kailama claims his decision to officiate an October 2021 marriage between a former student and another person, both of whom identified as queer, brought consternation from Calvin leaders. The lawsuit contains an April 4th memo from the dean of the university's School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. Kailama was a social work professor. In it, the dean writes about how the university's professional status committee could not recommend Kailama for continuation as a Calvin professor. The dean wrote, quote, "Professor Kailama's many positive contributions to the community made this difficult decision a heavy one. The PSC ultimately decided that since Professor Kailama's post-2018 appointments were de facto a probationary period during which his ability to adhere to the university's guidance and conditions with regard to his LGBTQ plus advocacy were under scrutiny, his behavior and decisions around officiating an LGBTQ plus wedding in October 2021 represented a failure to meet the expectations placed on him during this period." End of quote. Attorneys for Kailama alleged the university violated his civil rights. His attorneys wrote, quote, "Kailama's association with LGBTQ plus individuals and or his officiating of the wedding was a motivating factor in Calvin's termination of Kailama. Calvin discriminated against Kailama because of his association with persons belonging to a protected class under the ELCRA." End of quote. In the lawsuit, Kailama's attorneys also say that he complained about students being shown a faculty-selected documentary entitled How Jack Became Black because he believed it perpetuated racist views and harmful stereotypes. His complaints to colleagues also happened not long before his dismissal. Kailama also believes those complaints were a factor in his job loss. In a statement released in response to the lawsuit, Calvin University leaders said they have done nothing wrong. Quote, "The Calvin University community has been well served throughout its 150-year history by having diverse viewpoints among its faculty. The university's denomination, the Christian Reformed Church, has recognized and supported this diversity of viewpoints, endorsing the university's approach to confessional commitment and academic freedom. While there is room for personal disagreement with CRC doctrine, the university has clear expectations for employees regarding teaching, scholarship, and personal conduct, and follows established processes to review alleged violations of those expectations and to determine appropriate responses. We are confident those processes were followed in this case and plan to defend this lawsuit in court. At this time, the university has no further comment on active litigation. End of quote. No, Calvin is a bunch of racist homophobes. I'll just say it. Don't care. I'm entitled to my opinion, too. If you don't like it, tough shit. All right, let's stay with the LGBTQ plus theme, and let's go to a city in Ottawa County. And if we do that, you know we got to play the music. It's that time again, folks. And now, Hochter and Ramble present As Ottawa County Turns. This portion brought to you by Hampers. If your baby soils itself, throw it in the hamper. And I had to play this one because today happens to be the anniversary of the patent issuing for disposable diapers that later became Pampers, which is which Hampers is a takeoff on. So that worked out real perfectly. This is Lynn Moore writing for MLive, dated April 24th out of Grand Haven. A Pride Festival celebrating the LGBTQ plus community will be held for the first time in Grand Haven, a move that comes as far-right conservatism takes hold elsewhere in Ottawa County. The June 10th Grand Haven Pride Festival at and near the Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium was unanimously approved by the City Council last week. It's the first year for the festival, which is sponsored by St. John's Episcopal Church. Councilmember Ryan Cummins said it's important for the city to be welcoming to everyone, especially in light of actions by the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners. Cummins said, quote, "I think it's important that we are truly welcoming for all, that all folks understand that they belong here." End of quote. The Reverend Jared Kramer, priest of St. John's, told the council that 2 years ago, when the church held its first Pride worship service at the stadium, the church expected 30 to 40 attendees. He said that instead, nearly 200 showed up. Kramer told the city council, quote, "We realized it needed to be something bigger than just something my church does." End of quote. The festival will include entertainment at the stadium, a fenced area for alcohol consumption that also will be served by food trucks and vendors located in the marina parking lot. An adjacent grassy area will include up to 22 tents for an inclusive market. There also will be children's activities. The Pride worship service will be at 10 a.m. before the festival, according to Kramer. Organizers estimate at least 500 people will attend. Kramer said, quote, "I know it's not for everyone. That's what I love about Grand Haven. There's space for everyone here. If Pride's not their thing, they can just not go to the festival that day. That's okay. But for those for whom it's important, we'll demonstrate that truly all people belong in the city of Grand Haven." End of quote. Grand Haven City Council member Mike Fritz said the city has made strides in the past decade toward being, quote, "a welcoming spot for anybody." End of quote. Fritz added, quote, "It doesn't matter what race you are or what your beliefs are or anything. There's just so much happening in Grand Haven that we open the doors up and say, you are welcome. Please come to Grand Haven. Make yourself comfortable here. We don't want to step backwards." End of quote. Several members of the audience spoke about the festival, some in favor of it, some opposed. Annie Baker, representing the city's Human Relations Commission, told council members, quote, "Our city thrives when we come together to create social spaces to foster a healthy community." End of quote. Resident Deb Reimal told the council she believes there are 3,000 times more instances of spousal abuse in homosexual relationships and that cancer-causing chemicals used during transgender surgeries mean those who are transgendering will die of cancer. Oh, my God, really? Oh, even the bull was hesitant to say anything because he was in disbelief. She said, God damn. She said she has seen devastation among family members and friends who, quote, "have chosen that lifestyle." End of quote. She added, quote, So, as an analogy, I'm not for a crooked lawyer or politician, but they're not parading in the street telling me I should be for them. End of quote. Oh, brother. No, but I bet if the Trump train went by your neighborhood, you'd be out there marching, wouldn't you? You fucking. Resident Joan Held warned the council about business boycotts if they go forward with the Pride Festival. Held said, quote, I think backlash is a word that we're going to hear more and more in the news about various things. I'm already hearing people in the community talk about not taking their business downtown if you go forward with it. End of quote. You know what? Let them sit home. F*** those people. Last November's election saw several new members elected to the Ottawa County Board and local school boards who are a part of the conservative Ottawa Impact movement. They campaigned on frustrations over such social issues as diversity, equity, and inclusion. Among the newly elected county board's first actions were closing the county's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and changing the county's motto from where you belong to where freedom rings. In Ottawa County's Jamestown Township, voters last year effectively defunded the Patmos Library amid a campaign against LGBTQ books and others with sexual content accessible in the library's young adult section. We've talked about all of that in the last several months to the last year or so. We'll have more about that, but as we leave, let's go ahead and get the outro music. Join us again soon for another edition of As Ottawa County Turns. This program is produced for Big D Entertainment. Stay tuned for the Edge of Blight over most of these stations. If you've heard the Edge of Blight, please let me know how it is, if it's good, bad, or otherwise. And before we get to our final segment, I want to mention a story that I saw earlier this week. A member of Michigan's Civil Rights Commission is asking for the legislature to further enshrine rights for LGBTQ plus people by banning conversion therapy. This is when somebody comes out as gay and then they get shipped off to some camp, where usually a religious one, where they pray the gay away and usually beat the shit out of these people and physically abuse them, don't provide them water, make them march, make them die. Yeah. So hopefully those conversion therapies will be banned in the state of Michigan. The same commissioner also went further and has asked Dana Nessel for an official legal opinion, one way or the other, to determine if LGBTQ book bans banning the teaching of Black history violates the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. This is the most brilliant thing I have ever heard. I wish somebody would have come up with it a hell of a lot sooner. Speaking of coming up with stuff sooner, let's get to our next subject.
Hammer time.
Oh yeah, it is hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. Our winner this week is a group award. It's the Allegan County Republican Party. They're right next door to Ottawa County. They recently issued a manifesto, and we have a copy of it here. We're going to read portions of it. This is just some scary, super scary shit from these people. The top of the page says, to all elected officials holding positions in Allegan County, requirements as demanded by the Allegan County Republican Party precinct delegates. 1. Complete adherence to the Constitution of these United States of America in its original intent and the Bill of Rights in all matters addressed therein, and only those matters as they both authorize and limit the lawful actions to the federal government. A. Keeping one's oath of office is mandatory. Strict adherence to the defense of the aforementioned rights as stated in this Constitution against all enemies, all in capital letters, foreign and domestic in all capital letters, acknowledging that many of America's enemies hold office in our governments. B, the oath always takes precedent over the desires of one's constituents. Wow. So they're basically telling the voters in Allegan County, F you, you don't mean a goddamn thing to us. That's essentially what they're saying. C, the Constitution was written at a 6th to 8th grade level at the time of the signing, so it is expected that all elected officials read and understand the content as intended. Oh my God. While Republicans barely read at a 6th grade level, I'd say they barely read whatsoever. And they don't want anybody else to read. That's why they ban books. That's why they ban education. That's why they dismantle public schools. That's why they support vouchers for private schools. Because they want their propaganda taught to your children. 2, complete adherence to the Constitution of the State of Michigan in all matters addressed therein unless A, amendments are contrary to the Constitution of these United States of America. B, amendments are contrary to the laws of nature and nature's God. Oh, brother. So we're going to put religion in this. I don't think God gives a f*** about what they're doing in Allegan County running the government. 3, complete adherence to the Republican Party platform unless A, portions are contrary to the Constitution of these United States of America. B, portions are contrary to the Constitution of the State of Michigan. C, portions are contrary to the laws of nature and nature's God. Here we fucking go again with this God bullshit. 4, there shall be no compromise with the Democrats. None whatsoever. A, if the Democrats desire to work together, they must come to the standard of the constitutions as stated above and to the Republican Party platform. B, each elected official is expected to understand that there is no longer just a difference in politics or policy between the Democrat Party and the Republicans who would live in freedom with responsibility and accountability. Yeah, for themselves, except for everybody else, anybody that's gay, anybody that has a different shade of skin tone other than pale white. Every current goal of the Democrat Party is destroying America, freedom, family, and faith in our Creator, Savior, Provider, and Sustainer. Do these fucking assholes know what the separation of church and state is? Do they care? C, compromise and cowardly complacency will no longer be tolerated in those who claim to be Republican by we the people, the precinct delegates of Allegan County. Once again, it's all about the party leadership, and they don't give a flying fat about the voters. Sorry for all the cussing. I'm fucking pissed. Jesus fucking Christ. So to the Allegan... I am so angry right now. It's just, the vitriol going through my veins is just immeasurable. Oh. So to the fascist in the Allegan County Republican Party, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
No, you need to quit being fascists. Uncontrollable fascism is going to destroy this country. You heard it from me first. And it's the Republican Party that's pushing fascism down everybody's throat. And if you don't believe it, you better get on board real quick, and you better think again before it's too late for this country. I'm so angry right now, I can't even see straight. Folks, we're out of time for this week. I'm Darren Gibson. Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.